I was the tallest kid in elementary school. Probably not surprising, right? And in junior high, I mean, it wasn't until I got to high school that I got to have some guys that were around my height. And in elementary school, since I was the tallest kid and there was a shortage of guys, always seems like there's a shortage of guys, doesn't it, women? Yeah. Anyhow, because of that, I played on the boys' team. And so I grew up playing on the boys' team. Now, I go off to high school, and this was a long time ago. This was in the late 70s, early 80s. Here I'm in high school. I noticed that the guys have an amazing gym. It's got a bench press, a squat rack, all these cool things. What do the girls have? Nothing. Nothing. So I go into the guys' gym, and I'm hanging out, working out with the football players, thinking nothing of it because I've always been playing with the boys because I was the tall girl. And then one of my friends, they're like, you're tall, you should be a model. Oh, you bet the doggy. So I go to San Francisco to a modeling agency, and I was about the same. In fact, I know I'm the same weight and body comp as now because I actually went home and my cheerleading outfit still fits. My husband was really excited about it. Yeah. It's like, bring that back. I'm like, only if you get a fireman outfit. Anyhow, that'll be next year's theme at Mindshare. You'll wonder why we're having a fireman theme. It's my fantasies. That's why he was Batman this year. Anyhow, so I go to this modeling agency, and this is what they say to me. They go, you need to lose 20 to 30 pounds. And I start tracking my calories and seeing how low I can go. 1,000 calories, 800 calories. Now, I do sports, I dance. These are all going down. I do this for a month. One of my coaches, thankfully at that time, was like, what is going on with you? She thinks I'm anorexic. And I'm like, no, I'm not anorexic. And I realized at the time I could not do the things I wanted to do. I certainly wasn't working out with the football team. And I had a choice to make. And I decided I could either be skinny or I could be strong, but I could not be skinny or strong and strong together. So I chose strong. I was so far ahead of my time, right? Because I feel like now we're finally getting there. I mean, for 40 years I've been doing this, and women have been saying what to me when I tell them to lift weights? We're never going to say that again, right, women? But you did before. Here's one of the things that I am determined to do. I'm determined to get people to ditch the traditional scale. I think this has done more damage, especially to women, than anything else out there. This is a nightmare because it doesn't tell you what your weight's made up of, right? It's the wrong metric for success. And in fact, it doesn't tell you what you're made up of. And here's what happened. I'll give you a little behind the scenes. I was on Dr. Phil for 2 years. I was doing his weight loss challenges, and I brought in a bioimpedance scale so that I could see both weight, but also what the weight's made up of. I could track their total body water, which would indicate their fat-free mass. I was tracking their fat mass. I was doing measurements to see their waist and hip, to see their visceral adipose tissue. I couldn't talk about any of it. All we could talk about was weight, because I could make way bigger changes in weight than I could in any of those other things. I might say, hey, you put on a pound of muscle this month. Not very TV exciting. So we had a contest. We had 13 challengers. We divided them into 2 groups, and whichever group in a month lost the most weight was going to win the contest. So they collectively added them up, divided them by the number in the group. Whichever group lost the most weight won. So the day before the weigh-in, one group, and you got to credit them for this. This was like super smart. This group didn't eat at all. They didn't drink at all. They were in the gym on the treadmills, just walking all day long. And then that night, they go into their hotel rooms. They go into their bathrooms. They crank up the showers. They put towels under the bathroom doors, and they steam themselves. Next morning, they come in for their weigh-in, and I didn't know they did this. I didn't find this out till months later. But I knew they'd done something because I could see it on the bioimpedance scale. Because I could see that while their weight had gone down, they dehydrated themselves. And that group one, they had lost 1/2 pound total more than the other group. They just were smarter. They outsmarted it. I mean, you can't say anything about it. But again, do you want to lose weight or do you want to lose fat? And I'd argue you shouldn't even think about that until you first focus on putting muscle on. And you get that going before you ever try to lose weight. And here's why. And I like to say that muscle changes everything. Starting at around age 30, I don't know if you've seen these stats, we can lose up to 1% of our muscle mass a year. That's actually not the bad part. The bad part is that we can lose twice as much strength and 3 times as much power. That's actually way, way worse. So muscle mass is your size. Strength is how much you could lift something one time. One of the ways to tell that was with grip strength. Power is how fast you can do something. We now know that this is some of the most important metrics for longevity. And now this statistic here that 5 to 13% of 60 to 70-year-olds have sarcopenia, here's the reality. No one's looking for it. So those stats aren't even close. We walk through the airport and I'm like, sarcopenic, 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 right? And you can be normal or overweight and sarcopenic. It's called skinny fat. So while we think we're losing muscle because we're aging, I would argue we're aging because we're losing muscle. And I can prove it because I did a DEXA scan at 39 and a DEXA scan at 59. I had the exact same body composition. I hadn't lost any muscle whatsoever. The other thing that happens as we age, but doesn't have to, and again, I think this is because the less we do, the less we can do. And so as you're aging, you're getting very busy doing other things, so you start doing less. And then because you're doing less, you do less. And then the next thing you know, you're sitting around the whole time. You've lost muscle, you've lost VO2 max. VO2 max is a measurement of how much oxygen you can convert into energy when you're working full out. It is the biggest predictor of all-cause mortality, or how long you will live. And then the other piece of this puzzle is bone mineral density, which reality is, and if you guys have kids, people should have their bone mineral density tested in their teens. Our teens and our 20s are when we lay down all the bone, and yet we wait till someone's postmenopausal to test their bones when that egg has been scrambled, and now you're trying to unscramble it. It's ridiculous and crazy. Doesn't make any sense. So this talk, when we look at what you need to do to boost your metabolism, what you need to do to burn fat, is really a talk. It's like a love song to muscle. Muscle changes everything. It's 3 things, and these are easy for you to remember. It's your metabolic Spanx. What do I mean by that? Tim's always saying, put trademark after it. I'm like, okay, Sarah Blakely, it's your Spanx. But here's what happens. Muscle's going to hold everything in tighter. I hear all the time, I don't want to get big. I just want to have toned arms. I'm like, what the hell is toned? Do you know what toned is? Toned is muscle. Partially contracted because you built it. So if you want toned arms, you got to put on muscle. So muscle is metabolic Spanx. It's going to hold everything in tighter. And when you put on muscle, I remember years ago, we thought every pound of muscle is burned 100 calories more a day. Obviously, that's not true. It's about 10 calories more, maybe. So 5 to 10 calories. Sounds insignificant. It's not insignificant because it all adds up, and you also have to work to put that muscle on. So you've got the work of muscle protein turnover and the work of putting muscle on. So that's the Spanx part of it. The sugar sponge, muscle is where we pack in carbohydrates to be stored as energy called glycogen. The reason we use a bioimpedance machine and look at total body water is because when you have more muscle, you have more water. Because water and carbohydrates go into your muscles as glycogen to be stored for energy later. The place we store glycogen, if we're not doing much, is in our liver. Our liver gets full, and when it gets full, and those carbohydrates don't have a place to go, because you haven't been doing anything, it turns into fat and becomes fatty liver. But if you're doing a lot of exercise and building muscle, you've got places for carbs to go. That's not going to be in your liver and your visceral adipose tissue. Way better, way healthier. And then the third thing, and the most exciting part of all, is that muscle is a multitasking messenger. Every time you contract with force, your muscles send out messages. Boost my immune system, reduce inflammation, give me a better mood, raise BDNF so I can make new neurons in my hippocampus. Do you know that it is as effective to exercise for depression as it is to take an SSRI or do talk therapy? They compared all three. They are all the same amount of effectiveness, except you don't feel like crap that you do when you are an SSRI. Like this, you have side effects of the drugs and you have side benefits of the exercise. And the thing they found is of all those three, exercise was the one that lasted. The other ones didn't. So the worst thing you can possibly do, especially if you're sick, is nothing, which is what we tell people to do. Bed rest. Do you know 1 week of bed rest, you can lose 2 to 3 pounds of muscle and drop 40% of your insulin sensitivity in a week? Do you know how long it takes to put on a pound of muscle? Any guesses? Any? It's a month or so. Depends. If you're already very fit, it's harder. When you're new to exercise, it's actually easier. But could you imagine you lost 3 pounds of muscle in a week and now you're going to spend 3 months fighting to get it back? Frightening. So when I look at what we need to do, if muscle changes everything, is everybody here now super fired up that they should pack on as much muscle as humanly possible? Yes? I do not see it. That was a sheepish hand. Yes, thank you. I want to see, not the little maybe, okay, good, okay. And here's the thing, if you've already got muscle, good, pack on more. Because you're never going to get huge unless you take steroids. And it's the single biggest thing that we can do for aging, for metabolism, for mood, for brain, for bone, for everything. And so to start, if you're now agreed, and we've all agreed, did anyone not agree and want to admit to it? No, she left. She's like, I don't agree, I'm out. All right. First thing we have to know is where we're starting from, right? Now, I love a DEXA scan, but obviously you're not going to do these all the time. I think this is something we should be doing every year as a baseline. And if you're really working on shifting things, maybe doing it every 6 months, but you're not going to be doing a DEXA every month. So what you can do instead is I'll show you that next. It's a BIA test. The next thing you can do, have you guys seen a hand grip dynamometer? $30 from Amazon. This is a great thing to have at home. Couple reasons. And again, $30 on Amazon. You do the grip on each side. So right hand, left hand. If they are not even, if there's a 10% or more disparity, it's actually a sign of early cognitive decline. If your grip strength goes down instead of up, it's a sign that you need to take a little rest day. So you can use it to monitor all of this. If your grip strength is in the lowest quartile for your age, you're at the highest risk of all-cause mortality. It is a huge correlation. And this does not now mean go squeeze tennis balls, right? This is important. You remember those little hand grippers that this is not what that means. This means that we now, because grip strength is a proxy for overall strength, we have to do things to start to get stronger. The push-up test is great for endurance. Just make sure you're not doing really poor push-ups. I've learned not to say anything at the gym, but boy, do people have bad form. So they have to be real push-ups. A jump test is a great way to test power, and that's as simple as just reaching up with a pencil, marking the wall, and then jumping as high as you can again and marking it and using a tape measure to see the distance. And there's norms online. And of course, a VO2 max. Who's done their VO2 max? I knew that Nat would have done her VO2 max. Did you? Amazing. Do you want to tell what it was? No. Okay. Oh, I'd love to see your numbers. Share your numbers with me. So I'll tell you, I have so much PTSD from doing VO2 max tests in grad school. Like when you're in grad school in exercise science, you have to do VO2 maxes and all this horrible stuff on each other. And they also taught us to do blood draws on each other. Like we had no business doing that. Taught us on an orange and then had us practice on each other. I kid you not. Like, wow. So a VO2 max test is where they put a really tight mask on your face and you get on a rowing machine, a bike, or a treadmill, whatever you're used to, and you go all out. It takes about 12 minutes, and then they test how much oxygen you can consume, and then they give you a score. Good news is you can also do a predicted one. It's not quite the same, but it will get you close by doing like a 12-minute walk test, a 3-minute step test that will give you a good sign. But you do want to know this because your VO2 max is, again, probably the biggest predictor for your overall longevity. So what do you need to do at home? I know that there was all this stuff a while ago about scales and not using scales. I believe that we should be stepping on a scale every single day, but not a traditional scale. I think those things need to go. You need to use a bioimpedance scale as a metric, just like you would blood pressure or CGM. It's not some evil, mean person telling you something. It is to give you information. Am I gaining muscle? Am I building muscle? Am I losing fat? Am I putting on fat? If you use a bioimpedance machine, what you do is you get one that has an app to your phone. You get up every morning, you go to the bathroom, you step on the scale. You don't need to look at it. You just have it go to the phone, and once a week, you look at the trends. And as you do that once a week, you also do your tape measure around your waist and your hips. You use a Renfo Bluetooth. It goes to an app. And then you look at the trend lines on all this stuff. You just want to make sure the trends are going in the right direction. During the pandemic, I started gaining. I remember one week I was like, wow, my weight went up 2 pounds. Weird. And it was the trend. It wasn't one day. I mean, your weight will go up 2 pounds, down 2. It will do that, right? Then it started going up 1 pound a day. I'm like, all right, something's really off. And it was an autoimmune flare-up triggered by all the crazy stress going on from the pandemic. So this allows you to catch things early. So that's where I always start with people. You always have to start with tracking, because what you measure and monitor, you can improve. You have to know if things are actually improving, if you're going in the right direction. Because if something isn't working right, if you're not able to build muscle, maybe if you're a woman, you need to look at estrogen. Maybe a guy needs to look at testosterone. Maybe something's off with your thyroid. Maybe something's going on with your cortisol. You got to dig in and look, right? I'm going to go through the big rocks. I got to tell you, probably not a popular statement here, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because when you get past 50, you just don't care anymore. I think that we tend to focus, and you'll see a lot here. There's a lot of cool stuff here. Nothing irks me more than seeing people focusing on what EMF blocking medallion they should use when they're not exercising. Am I right? Am I amongst friends? It does. So I will tell you a funny story. Christmas Eve, I guess it was 2 years. Where were we? Was this last Christmas Eve? It was. Last Christmas Eve, we were in Naples. Do you know who David Perlmutter is? Wrote Grain Brain. So we were at his 70th birthday party on a boat dock. It was black tie and barefoot on a boat dock, music. And I'm sitting next to one of their friends. And he is telling me how he went to Mark Hyman's event in somewhere in Europe. And he goes, the Biohacking conference, and this conference, and that conference, and this conference. I'm like, oh, wow, cool. What do you do for exercise? He's looking down, he's looking over. I just wait. I've learned to just shut up and listen. Let's just hear. You know, it's like, oh, I did like some yoga poses last week. I'm like, that's great. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to go through are the most important things. I think you need to earn the other stuff, earn the biohacks, do the big things first. And by the way, then it'll make those things work so much better. So what are the big rocks? What you put in your mouth, how you move, and then, of course, the recovery. These are the things that make a difference. And just like you're tracking your body composition, not your weight, you're tracking your body composition, you got to start with tracking your food. You don't have to do this forever. But I think one of the most profound things you can do is a macro audit. Using a food scale, don't eyeball it. We are sucky at eyeballing. Do you know that the average person underestimates what they're eating, and this includes registered dietitians, by 40%, 25 to 40%? So eyeballing doesn't work. I think that we underestimate what we eat and overestimate how much protein we intake. So I really like this app Chronometer. It's free, but I would do the upgraded version. I think it's like $7 a month, and it remembers you. So the first thing I have people do is just do this for like 2 weeks. And here's what you do. Don't change anything. Just do this. Don't be judgy on yourself. Just check it out. Now, what's going to happen, even when you do this, is you will change things because it's human nature. Now, all of a sudden, you're like, oh, right? But that's the very first thing, is just check out what you're doing. See how much protein you're getting in at each meal. See how much protein you're getting in overall. What about fiber? What about fat? And then you can dig in later on like, okay, am I really getting the essential aminos I need and the fatty acids I need? Because that's a whole nother story. Once you've done that, I like to add before I take away. I have been doing nutrition and fitness coaching for 40 years, and I learned early on that if I take things away from people, they put worse things in, right? So what I like to do instead is first add things, and I especially love to add protein for a couple reasons. Number one, because I think it is the most important macronutrient. Number two, I know that if you eat it first, you tend to make better food choices overall. That's what these studies show. Number three, it's more satiating than the other macronutrients, so you won't be as hungry. Number four, it's more thermic than the other macronutrients, probably because it's going to be helping you in muscle protein synthesis, and that's a very costly thing. But carbohydrates take 5 to 10% of their calories to be digested, fat less than 1%, and protein somewhere in the 20 to 30%. So if all you did, and that's what actually the study there by Bill Campbell shows, and he's actually a neighbor, so he's shared this with me on my podcast. If all you did was take some of the calories that you eat, because if you start eating protein first, you'll tend to eat less, and you probably took something away from fat or carbs. If all you did was that, number one, you would lose some fat. And I say fat, not weight, because when you eat more protein, it helps you hold on to fat-free mass, and that's what we want to do. Last thing you want to do is lose muscle. Can we all agree on that? Hope I made my point on that. Right. So this just makes it easier. Plus, have you heard of the protein leverage hypothesis? I know Nat has. The protein leverage hypothesis they found it in locusts. And then they took it over to rodents and monkeys and now humans. And what they found is that because we must have essential amino acids. We have to have essential amino acids, which is what we get from protein. We have to have essential fatty acids, which is what we have to get from fat. We don't have to have carbohydrates. We can live without them. We need fluid, we need fat, we need protein. And so our body has a mechanism to ensure that we get enough protein. You will keep eating, even if you've had too many calories, if you haven't had the aminos you need. It's called the protein leverage hypothesis. So we can skip that, just eat the protein first. And so this is where we always get into and I lecture at a place that's like plant-based and they think animal flesh is toxins. I'm like, you're letting me in? But the reality is you can do this as a vegan. You just have to be very, very aware of what you're doing and supplement with protein powders. But it's way easier to do this on an omnivore diet. Animals have the amino acid profiles to rebuild animals. We are animals. Plants have the amino acid profile to rebuild plants. So if you're going to do it on a plant base, in order to get those essential amino acids in the right balance, you're going to have to just work harder. As we age, and again, I don't really know how much of this is due to age or how much of it's due to insulin resistance or how much of it's due to losing muscle and being sedentary and having more body fat, but there's this phenomenon called anabolic resistance. Have you heard of it? This is where it gets harder and harder for us to build muscle from that protein and that resistance training. So we actually need more protein as we age, not less. In our teens and 20s, we build muscle with the help of hormones. Not so anymore. Not so once you hit 30 and up. It's really important to get the protein in and also to digest it. I find quite often as people are lifting up their protein, if they're over 30, if they're under stress, they don't have the digestive enzymes that they need. This is my protein challenge. In this, we have a list of all the proteins, what 30 grams looks like, and then some different menus, and also the protein calculator if you really hate math. We've got that too, all covered. So a couple things that can be helpful here and something important to note. I think protein digestive enzymes are a great thing if you are doing a shift from being more plant-based to animal-based or increasing your protein levels, or if you're stressed out over 30, have gut issues. This is something that I think is a great thing to try out. I love using essential amino acids. I think they're a great thing. Like if I'm going to work out in the morning, usually I don't work out fasted, but if I am, I make sure I throw some essential amino acids in. It breaks a fast, yes. But I work out harder and I'm not catabolic, and I don't want to be catabolic when I'm going into the gym to lift weights. And you can also try doing this a little bit at night if you're sarcopenic and really working on putting on muscle, or if you're going through surgery, or you're not getting what you need from your food. Collagen, while it's our most abundant protein in the body, it's not complete. I love collagen for connective tissue when you're lifting weights. First thing that happens is your muscles and nerves talk to each other. Second thing that happens is your connective tissue strengthens up. And third thing that happens is your muscles actually start to grow. And so you need good, strong connective tissue. That's where collagen comes in. Recent studies showed that somehow 10 grams seem to be superior to 20 grams, which makes no sense to me, but I've been doing about 10 to 20 grams a day. I do it before the gyms because I have blood flow now into my joints, so it just seems to make sense. Plus, it's good for hair, skin, and nails. So I think collagen makes a ton of sense. And then I use protein powders. I use a bone broth or a pea, but I boost them. I've augmented essential aminos in there to mimic whey protein. If you can do whey protein's the gold standard. I just happened to write a book on food intolerance called The Virgin Diet, and I found a lot of people react to dairy. So if you're that, boosted protein powders can do it for you. So I teach eating by the plate. Again, the most powerful thing you can do initially to start to transform your body composition is to change what's at the end of your fork. Starting with eating protein first. Remember, when you eat protein, you're also going to get some good, healthy fats because animal proteins come with fats. This is important because we store toxins in our fats. You are what you eat. If you're eating animals that have been jacked up and with hormones and stuff and are in factories, you're going to have problems. So this is why we have to spend the money on clean animal protein, clean fish if we're doing it. And then lots of non-starchy vegetables, a little bit of slow, low carbs. So lean protein, you're clear on that. Healthy fats. My rule with healthy fats is make an oil change. This is where we can really control inflammation. If you are eating a more inflammatory style diet like we do in the U.S. The U.S. has like 70% of the diet now apparently is ultra-processed foods, which means you're getting a lot of damaged fats, seed oils, omega-6s. Back 100, 200, 1,000 years ago, our ratio of omega-6 to 3 was 4 to 1, which is where it should be. Average now is 20 to 1. That just means you're very pro-inflammatory. I think there's two problems with seed oils. The biggest one really is driving that inflammation pathway in the wrong direction. The other one is the way that these seed oils, the industrial ones, are processed, which is creating hexane, which is toxic. And remember, fats store toxins, so that's problematic. So that's the issue with them. So I prefer to get my fat within my animals. So if you're eating pasture-raised or grass-fed, grass-finished, you're going to get omega-3s, you're going to get CLA. If you're eating wild fish, especially smaller fish, who loves sardines here? Anyone? God, I wish I was you. I really do. Maybe I'll get over it. Maybe I need trauma therapy. I don't know. It just scares me. So these are great sources of omega-3s, obviously super important. After that, I think we get them from things like our avocados, coconut, nuts and seeds, and then what you're going to use with your cooking, which I pretty much just stick with ghee and extra virgin olive oil and avocado oil and coconut oil. It keeps it simple. Occasionally, we get a little wild at home and we use sesame oil, but not very often. So that's healthy fats. Have you heard of the American Gut Health Project, where you're supposed to get 30 plus different types of plants a week? It's a lot of different things. Most of us are pretty much in ruts. Fortunately, herbs count. But ever since we knew about that, we've really been working on doing more like, a lot of variety of different vegetables and different types of mushrooms and different types of things. So Think of eating 5 to 10 servings of non-starchy vegetables a day, half a cup cooked, cup raw, a lot of different colors, a lot of different types. And then in the slow, low carb place, that's where I put fruit. It's never made sense to me, on that food guide disaster pyramid thing that's now a square that just needs to go away. They put fruits and vegetables in the same place, and they count a potato and a banana and broccoli as the same. What are you going to pick? Right? Gee, I could have broccoli or a potato. Now, this whole thing between carbs, the carb-fat war, which I finally feel like now we're just focusing on protein. But remember, protein stays the same, and you have carbs and fats. So if you eat more carbs, eat less fat. If you eat more fat, eat less carbs. Don't eat more of both of those. Too much healthy food's unhealthy. Too many calories is a problem. They're going to go somewhere. If it's excess protein, more likely to do some of it in muscle, and then it's going to have to get converted to glucose and converted to fat. It's a whole long process. But eating too much of food is problematic, right? And so when you're looking at this, I find some people do better with higher carb, lower protein, or lower fat. A lot of these people tend to have more adrenal issues. Some people do better with higher fat, low carb, blood sugar, insulin, bipolar, cancer, keto, right? So you got to feel what works best for you. Just because your friend does really well on something does not make it right for you. Just because your friend eats doesn't mean she or he is a nutritionist. Do not take nutrition advice from your manicurist. I can't tell you how many times I hear something, but has anyone done it? Because I know you have. I'll hear this and I'm going, where did you hear that? And they're like, my manicurist. My manicurist, I literally got a DM on Instagram that said, my manicurist. And no shade on manicurists. God bless them. I love them, but not for nutrition advice. So my manicurist said that you can only absorb 27 grams of protein at a meal. I'm like, do I respond to this or do I let her sit in her stuff and spin around? I don't know. Anyhow, so you see how that works? So you may be doing some starchy carbs, and if you are, there's some great things in there in terms of fiber. We really want to be getting in, minimally for women 30 and for men 40 grams of fiber a day. You got to fuel that gut microbiome. I think the carnivore diet's got some really great things about it as an elimination diet, but a lot of times these diets that heal you are not the diets that are going to sustain you for the long haul. So just because something's working for something doesn't mean it's working for always. Are you eating the same as you did 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Probably not. All right. So let's say, does anyone here, and you can do a little like this if you want to do this again. Does anyone here want to lose a little body fat and put on some muscle? Anybody? All right. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't? Right? So there's a couple things that you can do. But again, your first thing is make sure you've got your protein optimized and that you're using those strategies if you need to. And I've got some other ones coming. And you're also going to be doing your movement. You're doing resistance training. That's coming up. But once you got those things on board, there's two things that you can do. Number one, you can do caloric restriction and cycle it. And this is one I learned from Bill Campbell, and I think it makes a ton of sense. And it's really helped avoid metabolic adaptation, but also avoid just boredom and not having any fun whatsoever. And that is, let's say that you learn from macro tracking that you do about 2,000 calories a day as your maintenance, which is really how you know your true maintenance, right? And then you caloric cycle 5 days a week, and you're going to take your calories down by 20 to 25%. So 1,500 to 1,600 calories a day. 2 days a week, you go back to where you were, and you cycle till you get to where you want to be. Remember, as you are losing overall weight, likely your overall metabolic rate will decline a little bit because your total daily energy expenditure is based on a couple things. Number one, your resting metabolic rate, which is based on your weight, your height, your sex, your age, your genetics. The things we can control in our resting metabolic rate is your muscle. More muscle, better metabolic rate, right? And making sure things like your thyroid are working correctly. And then, of course, you have your thermic effect of food. So in here, you'll see increased protein. So thermic effect of food, you can increase your protein. In fact, physique models will increase their protein to like 2 to 3 grams per pound of target body weight. So do not be afraid of protein. I know there's all this protein scariness out there. I'm not quite sure why. I'd be way more afraid of like bad fats and ultra-processed foods and carbs. I haven't really ever seen anyone binge on salmon in 40 years, and I mean, like, how much steak can you really eat where you're just like, I've had it. I can't do it. That's why they have those things in Texas, the person who can eat that steak gets the farm, because no one can. So these are 2 of the things that you can do to get to where you want to be. You have to use that bioimpedance scale and the tape measure to see what's really happening, and you're checking and making sure that your grip strength and all those other things are improving. I just have to do one quick shout out on hydration, because even mild dehydration does this really crazy thing. I interviewed Rick Johnson on my podcast, Well Beyond 40. Have you had him on now? Oh my gosh, you must have him. I'll hook you up. I love him. He's amazing. Anyway, so he wrote this book, Nature Wants You to Be Fat. And what he discovered, he's a nephrologist, and he discovered that if you are mildly dehydrated, remember how I told you that you store carbohydrates in your liver as glycogen? You will take those carbohydrates, free them up, turn them back into glucose, and then turn them into fructose, which is very easily stored as fat. So basically, if you're dehydrated, you're making fat, so that if you get super dehydrated, you could burn that fat, because when you burn fat, you release water. But you're never going to get there. You die first. So do not let yourself get dehydrated. We also know when you're dehydrated, it raises cortisol, and that even a little bit of fluid, every time you're drinking fluid, especially if it's colder, you have a little metabolic boost. So it can be a little hack there. All right. So now we're going to talk moob. I just got called out on Instagram for being a grifter for recommending weighted vests. I was like, I don't even understand what is going on here. Like, weighted vests. Why would we want to wear a weighted vest? Not to build muscle, just FYI. Weighted vests can be a great way to spend more calories. That's what they really do. And again, I talked about total daily energy expenditure, that we had those first 2. The third way that we can modify how many calories we burn in a day is how much activity we do. Now, most people think that would be how much exercise you do. It turns out that the most modifiable part of this equation is actually the non-exercise activity. Where I always start with people is this one, NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Recording this. Here's why. We have a tendency, when we start working out, to start sitting more. We go to the gym, and then we come back and we sit. And so if the first thing that you did was say, I'm going to make 8,000 or 10,000 steps a day non-negotiable no matter what. And I will tell you, I have an old broken foot injury. So he has been with me as I've been like hobbling down the street. So I always say you have to do these things. Quite often your why you can't do it should be your why you should be doing these things. You've got to keep moving. And so I always have people start with non-exercise activity thermogenesis, because then it becomes your non-negotiable, your habit. Right? And it's an easy thing to track with a ring, with a watch, whatever. Just make sure if you're wearing a ring that you're not like at the airport, I'm very careful not to use the luggage on this hand, because then I get no points. So you got to make sure you get your, right? And it's got to get your points. He's always looking at me going, you're not holding my hand because you're not getting points. I go, you're right. Like, I got to get the points. So that's your non-negotiables, making sure. So as we add the exercise in, you didn't steal from it. Then you add the exercise in, and I'm going to go in order priority. And the priority is going to be resistance training. And if you've never done it before, you're in way better place, because you actually will get what we call newbie gains. When you first start resistance training, your muscles and your nerves have to learn how to talk to each other. And nothing really happens for about a month, except you get a lot stronger, but you're not seeing your biceps. And then your connective tissue starts to strengthen, and then you start building muscle. And then, a pound a month at most. If you're not seeing anything, then you have to go get your hormones checked. Make sure you're eating enough protein. Make sure you're eating enough calories. I divide the body into 4 parts. I focus on 3: upper body pushing, does things like push-ups, overhead presses, upper body pulling, pull-ups, bent over rows, and hip and thigh hinging, squats and deadlifts. And I don't do core. I also don't do arms. I do not do core because if you're doing a squat, what are you doing? That was not a trick question. Your core, right? What about push-ups? What are you using? Right. So, and in life, what's functional? Like I never lie on the floor and curl up into a little ball. So, well, you want to do things so that when you're training to get better at life. You're not training to get better at doing something at the gym. That doesn't support you, right? So I focus on those types of things that mimic what we do in life. And I also don't do biceps and triceps because I do pull-ups and dips and push-ups. So I'd rather do very expensive, metabolically costly movements that work a lot of different things the way that your body is designed to move, because I don't do this in life, right? I don't do this. So, I mean, it's like, when would we ever do this? I don't do that either. I never do. I do dips. I do push-ups. I do overhead presses because I have to throw. I mean, ever since they did this whole baggage thing, how much do you put in your carry-on? Mine's like 100 pounds. So you have to, oof, clean and jerk. All right. And here's the thing. You want to fix your grip strength? Do a pull-up. If you can't do a pull-up, take the band thing to help assist you, and then also just hang. So resistance training comes first. It can start with 2 days a week. 2 days a week, 30 minutes each time. Pick 2 sets of 2 different exercises for each area. Like do push-ups and overhead presses. Then do pull-ups and bent over rows. Then do squats and step-ups. It can be that simple. You can do it at home. You can use bands or free weights. The most important thing is to do it, right? Start with form, start with body weight, build up from there. Once you've got that going on, the next thing I like to add is high-intensity interval training. You'll also see there's something called high-intensity functional training. I'm going to give you a little hack if you're short on time. There was a study that came out that showed that people who did 4.5 to 10 minutes total a day of something called VILPA, vigorous intermittent lifestyle physical activity, also called exercise snacks, had 30 to 40% lower all-cause mortality or cardiovascular risk compared to people who weren't doing anything. 4.5 to 10 minutes total in 1 to 2 minute increments. Can we all do that? Do you know how simple that is? This is a Ben Greenfield one. He goes, before I pee, I do air squats. I'm like, okay, all right. But I mean, think about it. You're brushing your teeth, do some air squats. You have breakfast, do some up downs. So you just can combine it. And what's cool about combining it with after a meal is you've all heard that if you walk after a meal, you lower your blood sugar response to meal, right? Like you suck the carbohydrates in your muscle. Takes about 20 minutes or so to do that. Takes about a minute to accomplish the same thing with air squats after you eat. I love time-efficient things. I also love anything that will bust the excuse of the I don't have time. If you don't have time, make time. Because if you cannot make time for 4.5 to 10 minutes a day, you have a bigger problem here with your priorities, right? So high-intensity interval training, I call it bursting to blast fat. There's a lot of different protocols out there. My favorite simple one to remember is 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy, 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy. When I say hard, it never gets easier. I was talking to someone the other day and they go, I've been doing HIIT training every day. I go, no, you have not. Because if you're doing HIIT training, you can't do it every day. You're done. Maybe twice a week, and that's really all you need to do. But the way you do HIIT training is you go 1 minute all out. You can't keep going. You need to just go and then do active recovery. And then you do it again. And then you do active recovery. And the reason you want to do active recovery is what you're doing when you're doing HIIT is actually raising lactate. And lactate's this amazing thing that is a fuel source for your heart and your brain. It's actually the best thing for your brain, and it helps make new neurons. It helps make new mitochondria, so you want this to happen. And when you do a little longer, like 10 minutes of hard, so 1 minute on, 1 minute off, keep doing it. It's really good for training your VO2 max. It's very time efficient. It helps burn off visceral fat, and it raises your lactate. So you're getting all those great heart benefits and brain benefits. Now for zone 2, I think this is a pretty easy thing to be able to do like once a week if you threw in a longer walk, like and wore a weighted vest, you got it. Or biked or did whatever. That's easy enough. The one that's the hardest for us to do here is the yoga situation. Who's a yoga person here? See, I want to eat sardines and love yoga. And then for a while, he bailed on yoga. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to do this by myself. Like I'm like, okay, I'm 10 minutes through. I'm 15 minutes through. I'm like counting the whole time. But I think this is one of the most important things is to really focus on mobility as we age and putting yourself into weird positions, because when you go to the weight room, it can be very, very easy to stay in this plane, what's called the sagittal plane. Like you just don't do these things. You don't jump into a crow in the weight room usually. So, a lot of times you're not even doing rotation. I like to add in things like wood chops. So you've got to do things that make you move to the side, that make you rotate, that make you do unilateral, that make you balance. So that's where yoga can come in. And then as you're progressing your resistance training, you have to progress, otherwise you're going to decline. Nothing stays the same. If you're staying the same, if you're in an exercise rut, you're not staying the same, you're going down. And so you always have to progress. You can progress by adding more sets, adding more reps, adding more weight. But the other things you can do is shift it up a little bit. You can add some speed moves for power, some jumping moves that really help with your bone mineral density. And I think we should be jumping a couple times a week, throwing some medicine balls, moving a kettlebell. So think of the ways you can mix it up. Occasionally I'll do Andy Galpin's 5x5s, which are 5 sets of 5 reps. So it's really hard strength exercise. And then another one that's great is the power plate, because it really pulls your nervous system in as well. So I'll do stuff at home using the power plate and weights, and then do some balance mobility on the power plate. Okay, couple supplements I love, just a couple. I have a creatine. If you are a VIP, you got this. So I made a very special creatine that doesn't cause GI issues or weight gain, bloating. Creatine monohydrates only absorbed about 15%. So I created a product that's absorbed 85%. This is the best jet lag sleep deprivation hack I have ever found. It's amazing for brain. It is not going to build muscle, but it's going to help you work out harder and recover better and give you really good body energy. The one that will help you build muscle is the next one. It's called Yoked. And Yoked or Fortitropin is also, the VIP's got that. This is fertilized egg yolk, and what they found was it increased muscle protein synthesis by 18%. And in fact, I did a little test on myself where I took it, and 2 months later, I did another DEXA, and I'd put on 2.5 pounds of fat-free mass. And I will tell you, at this point in my lifting career, that's almost impossible. So it's amazing stuff. We know that fish oil is anabolic. It also helps reduce inflammation. It's also important for your brain and bone mineral density. And then, anyone here taking Mitopure? I know you probably are, yes. Timeline Mitopure, urolithin A. If you see any other urolithin A, by the way, they stole the patent, so don't support them. I just found that out. It's like very frustrating. But this has been clinically proven to support mitophagy, and that is a really important hallmark of aging. And they did a study that showed that they could increase muscle strength purely by taking this and doing nothing else. Like, they didn't change exercise. All they did was add in Mitopure, which is pretty cool. The other one that I add in is Qualia Joint, along with their stem cell formula. And what's the other thing? The senolytic? Yeah. Everything for osteoarthritis from being very stupid as a teenager and blowing out a lot of joints. All right. This is the creatine guide. Everything you ever wanted to know about creatine, and some special discount codes and stuff in there too. I don't think my timer should really count since I didn't know what was going on. I'm going to call rule violation. Okay, let me know when you have that. Thank you. See that negotiation in action there? How'd I do? All right, got that? All right. Well, and it's funny too, because I'll just race through recover, because who cares? Here's the thing. The reality is, if you're not sleeping well, the rest of the stuff goes completely out the window, right? Completely out the window. We travel anywhere from 50 to 75% of the year, and we're shifting time zones. We've been in all sorts of different time zones over the last 2 weeks. I use creatine like crazy, but we're also super careful about making sure that we set the time out for sleep, and I track it with my Aura to make sure that I did, because you are building muscle when you're sleeping, when you're recovering, not when you're at the gym. In order to build muscle, you got to get great sleep. You've got to rest as well. You need to do the stimulus of resistance training, and you need to have the essential amino acids. So I love a sleep tracker, but I also think we can get obsessive about them. Like sometimes you had a really great night's sleep and said you had a crappy one and then you feel bad, right? So, but where I use it is just to kind of give me a gauge to make sure I'm doing okay. When we were doing this Mindshare event, I didn't look at it. I was like, I am not looking at this because this is going to be hideous. I don't need to know. But I will tell you that creatine has been a godsend. When I heard about it, I started testing it. And I remember the summer that I found it, I was like going back and forth between Europe and the US, and then Europe all the way to Canada. It was like ridiculous. And I had no issues whatsoever for the first time. And I used to have trouble going from Florida to California. So another thing that I love for recovery is sauna. Obviously, it's great for detox. It's great for longevity. It's great for cardiovascular health, but it's anabolic. So if you can happen to do a weight workout and get in the sauna, it's fantastic. What you don't want to do is do a weight workout and do a cold plunge. Like you just undid your results. So sometimes I will do sauna and cold before I go work out, but do not do cold. And we don't know how long that's happening for, but at least 8 hours, but probably even more. So that's my mom at 93. You say, look at mom. That was her golfing with Tim. And here's the funny thing. So my mom and dad, my dad, like probably 5 martinis every night, smoked like a chimney, would literally ask us to bring butter so he could put them on the cookies that he had for dessert every night. And maybe he would play golf like once a month. That was his workout, except that he took a cart. You know, it's just like stressed out on blood pressure medication, smoking like a chimney. Of course, gets lung cancer, not surprising. And I remember, you know, his whole life he was working his butt off and telling me I'm doing all this so that my ship will come in. And when my ship comes in, then I'm going to be able to golf all the time. We're going to get a boat, like all the stuff, like all this cool stuff is going to happen then, right? Of course, what happened then when a ship came in is he got diagnosed with lung cancer. And literally my real memory of my dad is in a hospital bed in my parents' bedroom in adult diapers. Like that's my last big memory of my dad. My mom lived 23 years longer, lonely. Like she wanted to be with my dad, right? But she golfed all the time. She took care of the house. She didn't do like traditional exercise because, you know, there are no profits in your hometown. She wasn't going to listen to me. But ate healthy, didn't really eat processed food, didn't drink much, like would have 1 martini a night, not 12, and always active, up and downstairs. Like even during the pandemic when, you know, no one was supposed to go to the store, she was like fighting me about this, you know? And literally just passed like, 93, 2 years ago. And this is what I learned from this. People talk about that they don't want to age. I'm like, I want to age. Like, are you kidding? Because what happens if you don't age? Like, you just took a dirt nap. I'm totally like, let's age. Because, you know, aging's a privilege. That's what I saw with my dad, right? But what I saw with my mom is that aging powerfully, so you're golfing at 93, that's a choice. So everything I just gave you is how you can make that choice. So choose wisely. Take care.